give a little bit of a breakdown on the project I'm working with. So far I have created 2 apps, but I have been thinking very hard what I should actually simulate. Basically what I want to do is I want to simulate an experience on the astral plane or an out-of-body experience. And then as I was thinking what should be my next step, I suddenly had the most fantastic out-of-body experience, and it gave me the answer of what I should and should not simulate. The one thing that happened to me was I went out of my body. I went out into a beautiful summer open field, and I couldn't tell whether it was real, whether I was physically there. It took me some time to realize that it was an out-of-body experience, because it was identical to our everyday life on the physical plane, especially in the summer. To people would be to tell everybody, find a nice sunny day, open the front door, go out into the world and imagine you are dead. Okay, that is how real it is. That is exactly how it feels, and what you will experience after you die. And so to me, the reason I was shown this was, the only thing people have to get used to is that life carries on, and the only thing that changes is the vibration or the frequency, and everything assembles around the new frequency, and it becomes just as real again. Okay, of course we have got various degrees of types of environment, types of experiences, but this is a very big thing, because that people who still believe when we die we turn into some sort of amorphous creatures, ghost-like shapes with little substance, or some bolts of light or anything, they really have to start adjusting their minds, because the biggest surprise will be how real everything is. And a lot of this is a really big philosophical thing, because how does this happen? How does this work? How does the multidimensionality of our reality actually pan out? How is it possible that life simply doesn't stop, and it goes on and on, and this is a incredible thing really to get your head around. So I've been thinking, I said, okay, what I don't want to do, I don't want to create an experience of life after death which is no different to what we already experience, which are the near-Earth levels and the medium and the higher medium or the lower medium type levels, which are very identical to what we already all know about. So then Wendy sent me an email this morning, and she mentioned some of the things which I experienced of a much higher dimension. And of course I've documented these in my book, and that's where I'm now going to focus my attention on, because what most people will experience will be just another version of their physical life until they're ready, until they're sort of have harnessed their inner positive forces to expand their awareness and expand their consciousness. Now the other thing, the other analogy that I thought about in explaining the multidimensionality of reality is by comparing it to the mobile phone networks. For example, we started off with a mobile phone network of G3, okay, and then a few years ago it turned into G4, which gave us a much bigger bandwidth, you know, and more information, because it was on a higher frequency. Now this frequency is giving way to G5, which gives us an even bigger bandwidth and more information, and a wider spectrum of reception and what we can perceive and what we can communicate. And I think that's a really good analogy of explaining the realities of our multidimensional existence. So let's say we are here in G3 on this planet Earth, and when we die we go into G4 and then G5. The way it translates into reality, our sensibility, our will be much broader. So for example, the higher we expand our awareness into higher states of consciousness, we see more, we perceive better, we can see better, we have got a better perception, everything is sharp, everything is crystally clear, we have got a much bigger range of colors we perceive. Okay, let's say on G5, the medium astral levels, where things become really interesting and we have got more options open to us. Our hearing becomes more acute, and also the way we communicate. We don't have to actually open our mouths to communicate with people. We can actually do it telepathically. Now that is not possible on the lower dimensional levels, because the energy is quite dense, you know. And I found, the first thing I found out on the near Earth or lower Earth, near Earth levels, people didn't manage to fly, and I always wondered why is nobody flying. And when I demonstrated it to them, they were astonished to see me taking to the air. They couldn't believe that that was even possible, because you need a creative energy. You need, in order to fly, you need to have elevated feelings. Okay, on the lower dimensional near Earth levels, we are sort of beset by rather dull, rather mundane, negative feelings, which won't let the higher levels of our emotions through. So we are limited in our range. And the video I did originally, the first one, the lower astral travel, the lower astral plane, is demonstrates first of all the absence of light. You know how murky and how dark, almost black and white things are. Also, people walk slowly. You know, there is not so much energy, there's not so much enthusiasm. They are plagued by their sort of drabness, you know, and the lack of energy. And then as we increase our range and we move into sort of G5 or G4, things become very, very Earth-like. And that was the experience which I think consciousness wanted to show me, that for most people who die, the first impression will be of, you know, nothing has changed. I'm still alive, you know. And it's then people like us who take an interest in the whole subject, who are sort of more tuned in and are open to the incredible potential, that they quickly say, oh, hang on a minute, I know I'm dead, now let's go forward, let's you know, enjoy it, let's expand, let's explore and things like that. Then gradually with this exploration, this need for exploration, an inner joy rises, an inner joy to want to participate and do things, and suddenly the atmosphere lifts. Okay, and without us really knowing, we suddenly find ourselves in a much more pleasant environment. And that very often is held by people who have already died, who we know. They may sort of quickly come to us and sort of introduce us to new things, you know. And I had this, I had the experience that I was shown things which I didn't know about, you know. So that gave me now the first simulation I wanted to do is an out-of-body experience. You know, the idea was to show the person who is immersed into the virtual reality rising above his bed and seeing his body lying there, and then I want to take the person out of the window, and they're flying through a city, and just give the feeling, which you cannot really easily describe, give them the feeling that they're actually having an out-of-body experience. And the idea is, if I do make it very intense and people have virtual reality gear, they can then perhaps do it before they go to sleep, and then they may have a real out-of-body experience, you know, because people very often report if they listen to other people who had experience or read about it, very often it triggers an experience for them. Now, I'd just like to address some of the questions which Wendy sent me. Yeah, the first one is, when you have an out-of-body experience, how is your perception different to when you are meditating? Well, I mean, when I'm meditating and having an out-of-body experience, what very often happens is I go into a kind of trance, into a deep meditation, and there's a trance state, a kind of borderline state between dreaming and being awake, and then sometimes there's a kind of heaviness, and then very quickly, very suddenly, there's a lucidity sets in, and suddenly I open my eyes and I'm in a different dimension. It can happen very, very quickly. An out-of-body experience, I don't have this kind of out-of-body experience I used to have in the 70s, when I could literally roll out of my body and then find myself in the room looking back at my body. This kind of out-of-body experience very, very quickly stopped, because the natural, if you're a little bit experienced, the natural home turf for you is the astral world. So you don't go into your etheric double, which is still connected to the physical plane somehow. You know, you immediately are drawn into the astral world, so you don't even see your body anymore. You know, so a lot of people find that, for example, they want to do experiments, and they set up an experiment, put a few numbers out in their friend's bedroom and say, okay, I put some numbers out, you come and read them, and then we have solid proof, you know, that it is real, that it's not a fantasy. So they do that, and I've spoken to other astral travelers. They actually made this experience, but it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work, because they are no longer on the physical level. And the bedroom of their friend may look like the friend's bedroom, but there are things are different. The picture on the wall may have changed. You know, there may suddenly be a carpet where there wasn't one. And so what people don't realize is they're no longer in the physical realm. And if somebody puts some numbers up, they may see the numbers, but they may be jumbled, or they may turn into a banner, you know, with a proverb on it or something. You know, things don't match anymore, and that is a big problem in trying to prove out-of-body experiences. So that's one thing. And then the other out-of-body experience is via lucid dream. And to me, that was the most common experience, that I very often I get up at the crack of dawn and I meditate, sometimes at 4 or 5 in the morning for an hour. And then I very often get quite tired because I need to catch up with some sleep. Sometimes I fall asleep while meditating, and then I'm waking up in a dream, because the mind was sort of focused and sharper as I was meditating, and then it drifted off it went into the similar type of trance state I described earlier, but there is an aspect in the brain which suddenly became lucid, because meditation focuses on being aware, being awake, and the more awake you are, the better. So then if you get into the borderline state of trance, very often during the meditation, you then skip over into an out-of-body experience or into a lucid dream. And the moment I had a lucid dream, I immediately recognize it, and I immediately disrupt the dream narrative. I stop the dream, and I do that by focusing on one aspect in the environment, and then I'm in an other dimensional reality. And that's quite interesting, because there's no story anymore. It's like real life. And you wake up in the morning, you think what you're going to do, you go and have breakfast, you have free decisions of what you want to do. So that's exactly what happens when you come out of a lucid dream into an out-of-body experience or into an astral experience.